Good morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and I was always told I had a voice radio, so today we are answering an extremely important question in the Pokemon trading card game at the moment. Is Zoroark GX better than Octillery? And while we're here, is it better than Oranguru? And while we're here, is it actually a good replacement for Tapu Lele? Now, Tapu Lele is a big thing of controversy in the Pokemon trading card game at the moment. It is a ludicrously good card that costs about $80 and that features prominently in every single Pokemon trading card game deck we have at the moment. There is no good deck out there that is not playing at least one Tapu Lele GX at the moment. The vast majority of them are playing multiple Tapu Leles. So with that borne in mind, we need to look at what other options we've got. And the newest one, is Zoroark GX. Now, we're not really looking at it as an attacker right now, although that will come in as and when we go through. The point is, at the moment, we want to focus on the ability trade. Discard one card from your hand and draw the top two cards of your deck. This means that every turn you can guarantee that you draw two cards. Now, in terms of a replacement for Tapu Lele, the answer is a very resounding no, it's not a replacement for Tapu Lele. It is at times better than Tapu Lele and worse than Tapu Lele. And the general theory is this. Turn 1, you want a Tapu Lele. Turn 2, you want a Zoroark GX. Turn 1, Tapu Lele, maybe searched with an Ultra Ball, etc., cannot be beaten. You use the Wonder Tag ability to search for any supporter card you like. Maybe you can go and grab a bridge at turn 1, that is what most people tend to do. Go and search out those basics, but if you've got all the basics you need, maybe you go for an N, if you've got cards in your hand you don't want to discard, or a Professor Sycamore if you don't mind discarding any of the cards in your hand. Turn 1, Tapu Lele is better. After that, most of the time, Zoroark is better. Because the thing is, Tapu Lele gets you a supporter, but it just gets you a supporter. Whereas Zoroark GX gets you 2 extra cards, as well as being able to use your supporter for the turn. So let's say you need a double colourless energy and a Guzma. Tapu Lele can get you the double colourless, but it can't get you the Guzma. Whereas Zoroark could potentially get you both of them. And of course, whereas you can use as many Tapu Leles as you like, but you can only use one supporter per turn, you can use multiple Zoroarks instead. That is a great, great thing, ladies and gentlemen. Now, having said that, there is a huge downside, and that is that it is a stage 1. Which means if you've got nothing in your hand turn 1, Zoroark won't help you. Now, if you've got a Zoroark turn 1 and an Ultra Ball turn 2, then you can get going. But it's going to be too slow. Zoroark is better in the mid to late game, but turn 1 it is considerably worse. In terms of attacking, however, Zoroark knocks spots off of Tapu Lele, because you can, if you've got a full bench, just do 120 for a double colourless energy, whereas Tapu Lele does 40 for a double colourless energy, plus 20 damage for each energy on your opponent's active Pokemon. Now let's say they've got an 8 energy Gardevoir. Well, then with a double colourless energy, you're doing 200 with a choice band, you're getting a KO. That's going to be very rare. Generally speaking, Zoroark's the better attacker. The one other thing we've got to bear in mind, Zoroark GX has a very bad weakness. Tapu Lele has no weakness whatsoever. So something like a Gallade or a Marshadow can just run through Zoroark, whereas Tapu Lele, your opponent has got to do an honest-to-goodness 170 damage, or you're staying around. Is Zoroark GX a replacement for Tapu Lele? No. It will be played in the same decks as Tapu Lele. It is not a replacement. You still need Tapu Lele. Annoying because Zoroark is available just as a promo when you buy a Zoroark box. But you cannot just play Zoroark instead of Tapu Lele. Tapu Lele's turn 1 Wonder Tag is too good. Sorry about that. So the other question is it a replacement for Octillery? And is it a replacement for Oranguru? Well, Oranguru allowed you to draw until you've got 3 cards in your hand. Octillery allows you to draw until you've got 5 cards in your hand. Zoroark just draws 2 cards. Now, of course, you can sit here and argue for ages about, well, some turns this, some turns that. The thing I love about Zoroark is it's a guaranteed 2 cards. If you've got 0 cards in hand, Octillery will get you 5, whereas Zoroark, you won't have a card in hand to discard. That's a bit of an issue. But overall, I love the guaranteed draw from Zoroark. Octillery has a huge problem here, in that if you've got a hand of 4 or 5 cards, you're not getting very much, and you're going to sit there wishing that you had a Zoroark to draw you some extra cards. And this is really compounded when we look at Oranguru. Oranguru only draws until you've got 3 cards in hand, so in order to draw more cards of Oranguru than you would be drawing with Zoroark, you've got to have a 0 card hand. Now, the counter argument for Oranguru is it's a basic, which means it can be searched out with something like Bridget. You don't need to find the evolution, you don't need to wait to evolve, etc. But the other thing that's really important is you can use it potentially on turn 1 of the game, which is not something you can do with Zoroark unless you play a Wally, which would be a very silly thing to do. One could say it would make you a Wally. I'm here all week. Seriously, there's going to be like 2 videos a week. Hopefully the jokes will be better. And then we get to the same issue as before, like we talked about with Tapu Lele. Zoroark has a much better attack, a considerably better attack, and is in fact a useful attacker. In something like Metagross, bad fire weakness, Zoroark comes in, fighting weakness, off you go. But it's got a bad weakness itself and gives up 2 prizes. If your opponent Guzmas an Octillery into the active, that is a bad thing. It could be stranded there and you could deck out and lose because you can't draw a card at the beginning of your turn. Whereas if your opponent Guzmas up a Zoroark, you can just pop 2 energy on and attack. But then again, your opponent could just Guzma up a Zoroark and KO it, take a cheeky 2 prizes. This happened to me the other day when I was playing against a Persimmon deck that was playing Pokemon Catcher. This was on my stream at twitch.tv/PTCGRadio, and shall we say the game went very badly very quickly. The reason why this is such an important question is because there's a lot of people who are playing stuff like Gardevoir or Alolan Ninetales, for instance, and what they're doing is they're playing a 1-1 or 2-2 Octillery line, give themselves a bit of extra consistency. It would be very easy at this stage to just take out a 1-1 Octillery line, pop in a 1-1 Zoroark line, and then off you go. Now, actually, saying about Alolan Ninetales GX reminds me, one of the great things about Remoraid is it can be searched out with a Brooklet Hill, and even if you're not playing Brooklet Hill, your opponent might be if they're playing something like a Volcanion deck, an Alolan Ninetales deck, etc. So there are some extra search options that you get with Octillery that you don't get with Zoroark. Honestly, ladies and gentlemen, it is going to come down to the particular deck. If you're playing something like Alolan Ninetales and you're already playing something like Brooklet Hill, there is a big argument you should be playing Octillery. Although even said that, they play double colourless, meaning they can attack with Zoroark. Whereas if you're playing something like a Zoroark deck with the Breakthrough one, then you want to be using Zoroark GX. If you're playing Metagross, then the chance of having a Pokemon like Zoroark who doesn't have that same fire weakness and is a decent attacker and has 210 HP is a really, really handy thing. The times when I get really confused are when I think about decks like Gardevoir that don't really have something like Brooklet Hill to make you think, yeah, Octillery's the way to go. And don't really need an attacker of a different typing, because they've always got Gallade, so Zoroark doesn't really seem like the obvious choice. And I'm not 100% sure what the option is here. So let me break it down like this. Octillery is good when you absolutely need to draw multiple things, because there will be turns you can draw more than Zoroark. Or Octillery is good if you're worried about giving up the extra prizes. So let's say you're playing a non-GX deck like Persimmon, you would never want to play Zoroark, because then you're introducing a GX that your opponent can take out for 2 prizes. That goes against the entire point of a non-GX deck. Whereas if you don't mind having a GX on your bench, because, well, my opponent KOs the bench GX, fine, they're leaving alone the active. Or indeed, if you just need an extra attacker of a different typing, then Zoroark comes in. I suppose in conclusion, is Zoroark our replacement for Tapu Lele? No. It's really not. You still need to be playing Tapu Lele. Is Zoroark a replacement for Octillery? Absolutely it is, yes. But some decks are going to want to play Octillery, some decks are going to play Zoroark. There are multiple things that you need to bear in mind, and sometimes it's going to come down to testing. But absolutely, sometimes you need to put that Octillery away and drag out Zoroark. So, I hope that answered the question very nicely as to where Zoroark fits and if it can replace Tapu Lele and Octillery that we've been using quite nicely for some time now. But as always, ladies and gentlemen, I want to know what you think. Where do you place Zoroark? Does anyone out there think it is a replacement for Tapu Lele? How do you feel about Zoroark versus Octillery? I would love to know. Let me know in the comments. Go nuts! Be nice. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at TheWassy, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCGRadio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts, etc., you can do so at patreon.com/PTCGRadio. But by far the most important thing, as always, is to look after yourselves until next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name is Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.